Make a tiled basin backsplash with me. So the first step is to cut your tile to size. The basin here is 500 millimeters, so I've measured 490 millimeters. This allows for the width of the trim edge itself, plus a 2 millimeter gap for silicone either side, and then a 2 millimeter room for error, so we aren't going to end up wider than the basin. If we're slightly inside the edges of the basin, that's fine, but outside is a big no-no. Then we need to measure all three sides of the tile and add them together. Then we'll add an extra 30 millimeters. I'll explain why in a sec. So now you cut your trim down. I just use a hacksaw, and I recommend using a tile trim mitre box. I've added a link to it in the description. You can also just use a mitre saw if you have one. Now we need to mark where the first corner of the trim needs to be bent. So line the bottom of your tile up with the end of your trim and put a mark on it. You need to remove the back edge of the trim at 50 degrees on both sides of the cut so that it won't overlap when you bend it round. The best tool for this is a set of tin snips. Place your speed square on the mark and gently bend it round. Next, you position the tile and trim in place on a flat surface, and you want a 1 to 2 millimeter gap between the tile and the trim to allow for grout or silicone. When you've got a nice even gap, you can mark the next corner, which will be your bending point. Follow the same process for removing the back edge of the trim with the snips, then bend with your speed square to create the next corner. This is where you'll see why I added extra length to the measurement, because now we can mark the bottom of the trim where it meets the tile, and it will be the perfect length. When we bend the trim, the radius of the corners adds extra length, which is difficult to calculate in advance. So this is a foolproof way of getting it right first time. To fit the backsplash, you can just use a product like Soudal Fixall Turbo. This sets in 20 minutes, so you can finish it off with grout or silicone pretty much straight away and the job's done. I've added a link to this in the description as well. I use spacers and tape to hold the trim in place while the adhesive sets, just to make sure to keep an even gap all the way around.